Alright, we've got some big news about live action One Piece. We are now less than a month away from its release on Netflix, so I would expect to see this sort of information just keep ramping up until we get there. But we have official summaries of all 8 episodes. And I know what you're thinking, Internet Man, I have already seen and all read One Piece. I know what's going to happen. I do not need these. Well, let me tell you, according to these summaries, no, you do not know what's going to happen. This is a completely different One Piece. And there's some really cool changes in here. Some stuff I didn't expect. However, I will also say that I do have some concerns, because it looks like some arcs are given a nice amount of room to breathe, whilst others seem almost impossibly packed. And to see what I mean by that, let's take a look at the first episode. Episode 1, Romance Dawn. Monkey D. Luffy, an optimistic young pirate with dreams of finding the One Piece, sets off in search of the loyal crew he needs to navigate the vast oceans. His journey begins when he helps Kobe, a deckhand forced into servitude, escape an undesirable situation. While in Shell's Town, Luffy meets Roronoa Zoro, a famed pirate hunter, and Nami, a master thief, and the three form a tenuous alliance. And semantically, I do want to be a bit of a dick here and point out that the use of the word while makes it sound like Luffy is both saving Kobe and meeting Zoro at the same time. And hey, maybe he is, maybe we're doing time jumps, because I don't know how all of this happens in one episode. Remembering that we've also got the Luffy Shanks stuff as well. Because basically this episode is Romance Dawn and Shell's Town combined. I think it is. It's hard to tell because there's a very curious character present in the next episode. We'll get to that in a bit. But my initial impression of that summary is that this episode has a lot to cover. It looks like it's tackling Luffy's origins as well as Shell's Town and also inserting Nami into things, which I think is a lot to bite off in a single episode. What I like about it though is its sheer ambition. I think that One Piece in general can be a bit tough to get into at the beginning because it takes a while to set up the very important crew dynamic, which you only really start to see form when Luffy, Zoro, and Nami are together. So it looks like by the end of episode 1, we will have constructed that integral dynamic, and if done well, I think that's an amazing place for a new viewer to be at the end of the first episode. In terms of the manga, it's about 7 chapters worth of story, but that measurement doesn't really do anything justice, because chapter 1 is it's like 50 pages, so 2.5 chapters long. Not to mention all the stuff that the live action decide to expand on, like Roger's execution and also Nami. Nami doesn't exist at this point in the manga. So it's more like 10 to however many chapters worth of material. And I definitely worry about this first episode potentially feeling too fast, because it's Luffy's backstory, Zoro's backstory, Kobe, Alvida, Captain Morgan, and Nami is there, and there's just a lot happening. Come to think of it, you're dealing with 3 series antagonists in one episode. Higama, Alvida, and Captain Morgan. And don't underestimate time needs when I bring up characters like Kobe either, because a pretty big change to live action One Piece is that Kobe has a much larger presence here than he did in the manga, which we can see with the next synopsis. Episode 2, The Man in the Straw Hat. Luffy, Zoro, and Nami find themselves imprisoned on an island overtaken by a deranged clown pirate Buggy. Kobe joins the Marines and proves his mettle. So yes, as expected, it looks like the live action is incorporating its own version of the Diary of Kobe Meppo cover story as a series-spanning B-plot, because Kobe is far from done. His name pops up in a lot more of these episode synopses. Is that a bad thing? No, definitely not. And I actually really like the idea of Luffy and Kobe meeting together in the beginning and then we branch off. We watch one become a great pirate while simultaneously watching the other become a great marine. I think that's a really cool idea, and if Oda and Shueisha were willing, I would 100% be on board with a manga series from Kobe's perspective. I mean, I like that we check in with him every now and then, but I want to see his journey like we get to see Luffy's. And obviously this episode is dealing with Buggy in Orange Town, which is about 14 chapters of manga content, so even more to cover than Romance Dawn, but I think that Orange Town has a lot more material that you can cut, more so than Romance Dawn anyway. So pacing wise, I'm a bit less worried about episode 2. I think that Buggy could work quite well as a one and done affair. But here's where things take an interesting twist. Episode 3, Tell No Tales. Luffy, Zoro, and Nami land in Syrup Village, where they meet Usopp, a local who introduced the group to Kaya, a sickly shipyard heiress, under the care of a trio of overbearing house staff. With the help of Kobe, Vice Admiral Garp, a powerful marine, sets off in search of Luffy. Again, there's that Kobe B-plot being tacked onto the end there. But also Garp sets sail in search of Luffy. That's pretty massive. Not only because we're just including Garp this early, but because we are directly tying him to Luffy this early. I really wouldn't be surprised if we found out that Garp was Luffy's grandfather in this first season. We may very well even see the two of them interacting together in the same scene. In fact, in the trailer, we kind of do. We see Garp Garp on his ship chasing the Going Merry, so they're in at least that one scene together. But just wait for it, because it's episode 4 that goes well and truly off the rails. One thing before that though, in the synopsis for episode 3, it says that Kaya is under the care of a trio of overbearing staff, which is interesting because I only remember 2, being Merry and Kuro/Klahador. And maybe I am just having a complete mental blank, it happens, but I don't know who that third character is referring to. Maybe another member of the Black Cat Pirates will infiltrate alongside Kuro? Because it can't be a new character, right? That would be pretty damn ballsy to have a live action only character. But moving on, episode 4. The pirates are coming. Luffy, Zoro, and Nami fight their way through Kaya's mansion, which has now become a prison. Usopp enlists the help of Kobe, Helmeppo, and the Marines. Luffy finally gets the ship of his dreams as Garp closes in. So this is one of those things where it's like, I know all of those words, but together they don't make sense. Because this just isn't how, because this is just, I can't even say the words. That's how it's sense not making. In summary of my mind thoughts, this is the first episode that I would say diverges almost completely from the One Piece we know. First big difference, instead of fighting the Black Cat Pirates outside under a lovely sunny day on the coast, we now seem to have a mansion prison invasion. And from the trailer, I'm picturing the confrontation with Kuro with much more horror vibes. Like say everyone gets separated in the mansion and Kuro's picking people off one by one. Maybe not one by one, maybe just one person, probably just Merry. And part of me is like, yeah, that's a really cool idea, a different take on Kuro. And in the end, is a live action even worth doing if we don't get to see different takes like this? I don't know, I don't have the answer to that. I don't know if it's worth doing even if we do get to see different takes, that's the thing. But at the same time, another part of me is like, you know what, it sounds a lot cheaper to film that than say hiring an army of extras and directing a big outdoor battle scene. Because inside you're always on set and you can control the lighting conditions. And also, if you're inside, you don't need a ton of Black Cat Pirates, you just need a handful. The part that blows my mind though is Usopp meeting Kobe and Helmeppo, which is something that I don't think he's even done in the actual series yet. Everyone else met them on Water 7, but Usopp wasn't there. However, I should point out that originally in the manga, Oda did plan for Usopp to meet Garp. So in a super deep reference, this situation might be a reference to that. But either way, this is huge, because does that mean that Kobe and Helmeppo were going to be active parts of helping to fight against the Black Cat Pirates? So I guess we do have confirmation that they're all going to be on Syrup Village at the same time. So if they do reveal that Garp is Luffy's grandfather, this seems like the chance to do it. Because this is starting to remind me quite a bit of Return to Water 7, which is where these two groups originally met in the manga. But this episode, more so than the others we've read so far, really makes me hope that they know what they're doing. Because these are some colossal departures and they will have ongoing ramifications for future arcs. Episode 5, Eat at Baratie. Luffy and the gang are tested in their ability to fight together on the high seas. They arrive at Baratie, a floating restaurant where they encounter Sanji, a young chef with a love of fine dining. A duel on the docks shocks the group. And now it seems like we're right back on track. This sounds like it was ripped straight from the manga, and I think this episode is going to have a heavy focus on Mihawk and Zoro. I do find it interesting that they don't mention Don Krieg at all, or even allude to there being a potential Krieg-based situation. I mean, I guess they sort of do. Luffy and the gang are tested in their ability to fight together on the high seas. Could that be Don Krieg? Could that be Kriegi? That could be Krieg stuff. But even though the role of Krieg was cast, I'm starting to think that it was heavily minimized, if not cut altogether. And a lot of that thought comes from the next synopsis. Episode 6, The Chef and the Chore Boy. The group is ambushed by a threat no one sees coming. After a hard-fought battle at Baratie, Sanji finally follows his dreams, while another crew member shows their true colors. So we know from the trailer that the ambushing group are the Arlong pirates. So we've got Arlong, Chu, and Karubi at the very least arriving at Baratie. And you know what they're doing there? They're messing everyone's stuff up. Again, no mention of Krieg, but we do have word of a hard-fought battle, but maybe that could be against the Arlong pirates as well, where the Straw Hats, I have to assume, lose. And that would put us in the low point of the series after Nami betrays them. You know, I'd speculate that Krieg might have Full Body's role instead, the guy that gets made an example of by Sanji. But Full Body himself has also been cast, so I don't know. There's some weird stuff going on here. And you know, I have the same feeling that I got with the Syrup Village episodes. The thought of, alright, having Arlong at Baratie, that sounds really cool, a really nice what if. But also, Production Mind is saying, you know what, it also sounds a lot cheaper to accomplish. To say have 1, 2, 3 fishermen in prosthetics invade lead the restaurant as opposed to Don Krieg and his entire armada. And again, it sounds a lot easier to film an indoor scuffle between a handful of characters as opposed to a giant outdoor battle with hundreds of pirates and assorted chefs. I hope there is more outdoor stuff because right now the impression of live action One Piece to me is that it feels a bit claustrophobic. Because from what we read in these summaries and what we've seen in the trailer, there is a lot of indoor action. And in fact, something I didn't bring up at all is that it looks like the buggy stuff now all happens inside a circus tent, which is cool. I like that. Then the Kuro stuff happens in Kaya's mansion. Yeah, alright, sure. But now the Baratie stuff also might potentially very much be happening within Baratie. And from what we see of Luffy versus Arlong, even that looks like it takes place pretty much exclusively inside. Whereas in the manga, that was just the final moment. And it's kind of killing my pirate vibes, you know? Fresh air, open sea, etc. But let's tackle the last two episodes. Episode 7, The Girl with the Sawfish Tattoo. The crew comes to the aid of a member in dire need of a family. And then we have Episode 8, Worst in the East. The shortest summary of all of them, which is simply that a new pirate crew is born. So this is the Arlong arc, and I think that episode 7 might end with the walk to Arlong Park, or that shot we saw in the trailer of the Straw Hats ready to kick a salted fish butt. And then episode 8 is the big action climax. The Straw Hats triumphantly defeat the Arlong, then set sail together for the first time as a crew, and then they get Luffy's first bounty. So I think at this point, there's a pretty high chance that we won't be getting to Logtown. One good reason for assuming that, other than time, is because neither Smoker nor Toshigi have been cast. And this might be a bit fictional pirate conspiracy theory of me, but I'm also starting to wonder if Garp might inherit the role of Smoker in the live action, pursuing Luffy through the Grand Line and giving them a way to keep Kobe in the picture so that we can continue to follow his story. All in all though, I've got pretty mixed feelings about these summaries. I love everything to do with adding more Kobe, Helmeppo, and Garp. I like that we seem to have an equivalent marine presence and perspective, which if in some amazing dream world we ever actually did get to the Paramount War in what would that be, like series 5? If we did get there, then having these opposing perspectives from the very beginning would pay off tremendously. However, I do fear a potential reality where live action One Piece mostly takes place indoors, because the idea to me seems a bit antithetical to the concept of piracy and freedom and all of that stuff. Although if you really wanted to justify it, I'm sure you could come up with something. You could say that like, Luffy facing all of his opponents indoors is a metaphor for them trying to impose on his freedoms. Because if you're good enough with language, you could justify probably literally anything. I think that my live action compass has definitely moved back towards a more neutral position, because the closer it gets and the more we learn, the more nervous I become. I mean, yeah, I was a big fan of the second trailer. The second trailer was amazing, but I don't know. Is it just a case of taking cool little bits and stitching them together to form a funky music video like thing? Or is this the series that could finally break the live action curse? Or is this going to be yet another thing that One Piece fans have to endure like the 4Kids dub? I don't know. So let me know your thoughts in the comment place.